She said, "I made this just for you," and handed me a cup. But something about the way she smiled made me feel sick. That's how it started. One sentence. One smile. One cup of coffee. And it changed everything. She handed me the cup like it was some sort of treasure. Both hands, palms up, smile wide and hollow. "Just for you," she said, voice light as lace. I made it special. The cup was white porcelain, rimmed in gold, the kind my mother used to save for holidays. I stared at it for a second too long, not blinking. The scent that rose from it wasn't wrong, not exactly. But something about it twisted in the back of my throat. Too sweet. Too warm. A sharp undertone of something that did not belong in cinnamon. I smiled, but my fingers wrapped around the handle like I was lifting something dangerous. "Thank you, Lily. That's thoughtful of you." Across the room, her mother chuckled. "She's always fussing over things." "You're lucky." I didn't answer, because the words sat like needles under my skin. She's always fussing, as if this wasn't unusual. As if bringing me a drink I didn't ask for was normal. "You're lucky," as if I should be grateful for every forced smile and backhanded kindness. I moved toward the armchair slowly. My knees ached, but not as much as my heart did. I didn't feel welcome. I felt like a visitor in my own life. I'm 75. I know what it means when people start using that careful, syrupy tone. The one that says, "You don't matter anymore, but we'll act nice so you won't notice." Lily sat on the couch beside her mother. My son, David, was in the kitchen, opening wine like it was any other Saturday. He didn't look at me. He hadn't, not really, in a long time. I set the cup on the side table. Didn't sip. I listened to them talk. About traffic. The neighbor's new dog. A brunch place downtown. Nothing real. And then I heard her say it. "We just want her to feel comfortable." Comfortable. Like I was some old chair. Something to be placed in a corner and forgotten. Lily glanced at the cup. Then again. 3 times in 10 minutes. Each glance carried something behind it. Urgency? Expectation? It was like she was waiting for something to happen. Her mother noticed. She leaned forward, pretending to smile. "Well, don't let it get cold." I nodded slowly. "I'm letting it cool." They both went quiet for a second too long. Their faces were still, but something behind their eyes shifted. I saw it. I excused myself to the bathroom. Took the cup with me. I locked the door and stood over the sink, the cup in my hands. I looked at it for a long time. I didn't pour it out. I didn't need to. I just stood there, staring. Then I rinsed the rim and swapped it with the identical cup left in the hallway, the one her mother had been sipping from. When I came back, I placed the new cup down where the first had been. "You know," I said lightly, "I always get confused with these matching cups." Lily blinked once. Her mother smiled like nothing had changed. But I noticed her eyes darted to the cup, then to her daughter. I sat down and waited. Her mother was the first to falter. She blinked too slowly. Her words came out a bit soft. Then her eyes closed. 27 minutes later, she passed out in the chair. David jumped to his feet. "Mom? What happened?" Lily screamed. I stayed seated. "Call someone," Lily shouted. "I'm fine," I said calmly. "Not you, her." Lily dialed fast. David looked at me confused. "Did you see anything?" "Only that she drank your wife's special coffee." The silence in the room was thick. No one spoke. I looked at my son. And he didn't look back. Later, after the ambulance took her mother away, after all the fuss and the rushed excuses, I sat in the kitchen. Lily cleaned the counter like she was angry at it. Her hands moved fast. Too fast. Her face was tight. She didn't say a word to me. David whispered in the living room. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I looked at my own hands. Old, yes, but steady. Strong. And I remembered everything. The time Lily told me, "You should let us handle your medications. It's easier." Her voice was soft, but firm. Like a command dressed as concern. That suggestion made my chest tighten. I didn't need help with my pills. I didn't need her looking over my shoulder. The way she offered to buy my groceries, even though I could do it myself. "It's no trouble," she'd say. But her tone always made it sound like I couldn't be trusted to pick out my own fruit. I once asked for a specific brand of tea, and she brought something else, smiling as she said, "It's better for your age." She said, "You shouldn't be living alone, it's not safe." Safe from what? From her? She smiled when she talked about turning the garage into a guest suite. "You could move in, we'd take care of you." That one hurt the most. Because it sounded nice. It almost fooled me. But she didn't want to take care of me. She wanted to keep an eye on me. Control me. Own me. Every time she brought over a smoothie and said, "I made this for you. Drink it while it's cold," I felt like I was being tested. Tricked. The way she watched me drink. Like she was waiting for something. She once said, with a little laugh, "You've had a good life, haven't you?" I didn't know how to answer. It felt like a goodbye. A rehearsal. Every word, every glance, every fake kindness, it all added up. And I realized she didn't want to help me. She wanted me gone. They wanted the house. My accounts. Everything I'd worked for. They thought I was too old to notice. Too tired to care. But I noticed. And I cared. I raised David alone after his father passed. I worked nights. Saved every penny. I bought this house with my bare hands. I gave them loans. Paid their bills. Smiled when they forgot my birthday. And this is how they repaid me. Lily dried her hands. "Would you like tea instead?" "No," I said. She looked at me. For a second, her face cracked. Then she turned and left the room. That night, I opened my old file box. It held the deed to the house. My will. Bank records. I pulled out fresh folders. One labeled, "New Will." Another, "Lily." Another, "David." I printed out texts. Took photos. Wrote down what I saw. Every time Lily mentioned my medication. Every time she made something just for me. Every word that made me feel smaller. Then I called my lawyer. "Yes," I said. "It's urgent. We need to make changes." Outside, the street was quiet. Snow had started to fall. Inside, I felt more alive than I had in years. They would never know what I was doing. Not until it was too late. And when it all fell apart, they'd say I was cruel. But I wasn't. I was just done. And finally, putting myself first. They didn't call the next morning. Not to check on her mother. Not to see if I was all right. Not even a short text. Just silence. It wasn't surprising, not really. But still, it stung. Like everything else. When I woke up, I moved slower than usual. Not because of pain, but because of weight. The weight of knowing. The weight of seeing clearly. I made tea for myself. No one else. Just one cup, strong, black, the way I like it. I didn't add honey. I didn't set out extra spoons. For once, it was just mine. I sat at the table and I let the silence settle. It wasn't peaceful. Not yet. It was sharp, like broken glass on the floor. But it was honest. I kept seeing Lily's face in my mind, the way her eyes flicked toward that coffee cup. Not once. Not by accident. It was deliberate. Repeated. Expectant. And her mother's silence during it all complicit, practiced. I tried to push it down. But then the memories began. The small things, the forgotten things. Things I had brushed off because it was easier. 2 months ago, I came back from a walk and found Lily in my house, uninvited, sorting through the kitchen drawers. "I was just looking for the extra napkins," she said, too quickly. I laughed it off. But now I wonder what she was really looking for. Last winter, she insisted on helping with my taxes. "You don't need to worry about all those forms, they're too complicated. Just let me bring them to David." I had agreed. Like a fool. At the time, I told myself it was kindness. I wanted to believe that. Because the alternative felt like betrayal. But it was betrayal. It was always betrayal. And David, my own son, he let it happen. He watched it happen. He stopped calling regularly 2 years ago. Claimed he was busy. Too many meetings. But I saw him post photos on social media, smiling at parties, on trips, laughing with Lily in places I had never been invited. When he did call, it was always about something that needed fixing. "Do you still have the number for the plumber? Can you transfer the car title again? Do you mind co-signing one more thing? Just in case." Not once did he ask me how I was. He forgot my birthday last year. Lily texted a day late with a smiley face and a photo of flowers I never received. David didn't even sign his name. I told myself not to make a fuss. I always told myself that. Even when Lily suggested, maybe you should stop driving. It's a lot at your age. Even when she moved the medication bottles from my cabinet to a locked box in her car, saying, it's safer this way. Even when I found a document on their printer, an application for guardianship, half filled out. I asked about it. Lily laughed and said, oh, that's just a mistake. I was helping a friend. I let it go. But now I saw it clearly. I had become a task. An obstacle. Something to manage. Something to gently push aside. And all I ever wanted was to be part of my son's life. I gave everything I had to him. I used to walk to work in the rain just so I could save enough for his first computer. I skipped doctor's appointments to afford his field trips. I said no to new shoes so he could say yes to college. And now? Now I was the problem. Now I was the burden. I got up and opened the drawer in the hallway. The one where I kept old letters. There was a birthday card from David when he was 10. It said, to the best mom in the world. I'll take care of you when you're old. Promise. I sat on the floor and held that card in my hands. My chest ached in a way I couldn't name. How do people change so quietly? I stayed there until my knees complained, then slowly stood. I walked through each room in my house, running my fingers along the walls I had painted, the shelves I had built, the memories I had tried to preserve. I opened the closet and took out a small notebook, one I had never used. I sat at the table again and began to write. Every word they said that had made me feel small. Every time they acted like I was in the way. Every day they forgot to call. It filled up fast. I started a second page. People who remembered me. People who had shown real care. The list was shorter, but it was real. At the bottom of the page, I wrote one name in capital letters. Maria. Maria was my home nurse after I fell 3 years ago. She only stayed for a few months. But she treated me like a person. She asked me what music I liked. She brought soup when I had a cold. She sat with me even after her shift ended. She never asked for anything. Never hinted at money or favors. She was just kind. I found her number in my old phone book and called. When she picked up, her voice was warm. Mrs. Callahan? It's been so long. Maria, I said. I was wondering if you'd like to come by for tea. Just us. Just to talk. She came that afternoon. And when I saw her standing in my doorway with that same gentle smile, I felt something break loose inside me. I told her everything. Not the cup. Not yet. But everything else. The way I was being treated. The way I was being pushed aside. The way I was being erased. She didn't interrupt. She didn't offer empty comfort. She just listened. And when I finished, she put her hand over mine and said, you don't deserve this. That was all I needed to hear. I opened the file box again, took out the new folders, and I told her what I planned to do. She nodded. I can help you with the paperwork. I know someone who specializes in elder legal protection. Trustworthy. Quiet. Thorough. By evening, the silence in the house felt different. Still heavy, but not hopeless. I opened the curtains and let the last bit of light into the room. The dust in the air danced like it was trying to remind me I was still here. Still breathing. They had spent so long trying to make me small. But I wasn't small. I was just quiet. And quiet is not the same as weak. I made one more list that night. A list of things I no longer owed. I didn't owe David more chances. I didn't owe Lily more politeness. I didn't owe anyone an explanation for protecting myself. The next day, I woke to sunlight streaming through the curtains. I made toast, not worrying if there was enough for anyone else. I hummed while I swept the porch. In the afternoon, I sat on the back steps and watched the trees sway. I hadn't done that in years. Just sit. Just be. Maria returned the next day with the name of a lawyer. We made an appointment. I updated my will. I gathered my documents. We scanned everything and made copies. Every time I placed a paper in the folder, I felt a little stronger. Maria brought groceries. Not because I asked, but because she remembered the kind of crackers I liked. The kind Lily always said were too expensive. We laughed about something small, an old TV show we both used to watch. It felt good to laugh without watching my words, without pretending. By the end of the week, I had everything in place. I even called the bank. Removed David's name from the joint account. The woman on the phone said, "Are you sure?" "Yes," I said. "I'm sure." I wrote a letter that night. To David. I told him I loved him. That I always would. But that love doesn't mean silence. Love doesn't mean erasure. I didn't send it. Not yet. But I wrote it. And I meant every word. I poured the cold tea down the drain. I washed the cup. Dried it. Put it back in the highest cabinet. And then I locked the front door, double-checked the windows, and turned off the lights. It was the first night in years I didn't dream about being forgotten. Because for the first time, I wasn't hoping they'd remember me. I was remembering myself. It snowed that morning. Not the kind of snow that makes children cheer or paints the world in wonder, but the heavy, wet kind that settles in with weight. The kind that soaks through boots and hangs in the air like a warning. I stood by the window, holding my tea, watching it fall without sound. I didn't feel lonely. I felt clear. The phone rang twice that day. I didn't answer either time. The third time, I picked it up just to see the caller ID. It was David. I didn't press talk. I just stared at his name. And then I pressed silence. That was the turning point. Not loud. Not angry. Just quiet. Like closing a book mid-sentence and choosing not to read the ending. An hour later, a message popped up. "Hi, Mom. Just checking in. Hope everything's okay. Lily says you've been acting a little off. We're worried. Let us know if you need anything." Acting off. Not a question about how I felt. Not a word about the silence. Not even a real apology for not calling earlier. Just a comment from Lily as if I was misbehaving. My stomach turned. I walked to my desk and pulled out the folder labeled David. I added the message to the growing pile. I made a note of the date. I highlighted the phrase, "Acting off." I had been acting quiet. I had been acting like someone who finally saw what was happening. Later that evening, the doorbell rang. I didn't answer it. They didn't knock again. I sat in my armchair, wrapped in my shawl, and let the silence expand around me. It wasn't bitter. It was soft. Like a blanket made of truth. That night, I removed all the old photographs from the hallway. The ones with Lily smiling next to me, David with his hand on my shoulder. I put them in a box. Not to throw away, but to reclaim. I took out other photos instead. Of me with my sister, long before David was born. Me holding my dog as a teenager. Me standing in front of this very house the day I bought it. I framed those. The next morning, I made breakfast and read the paper. Alone. In peace. And that's when I decided I wouldn't be going to the holiday dinner. They hadn't officially invited me. But I knew they'd expect me. They always did. Because I always came. I always brought the dessert. I always stayed late to clean. I always paid for the extra wine. Not this time. I didn't call to tell them. I didn't explain. I didn't offer excuses. I simply didn't go. Christmas Eve came and went. So did Christmas Day. I watched an old movie. I made roast chicken for one. I listened to music that made me feel something. The snow kept falling. The world stayed quiet. And then, on the 27th, came the message. It was from David. No greeting. No warmth. "You could have let us know you weren't coming. Lily cooked for you. She was really hurt. We tried to include you." Include me. As if I were a guest in their family. As if I hadn't been the one to build that table. As if I hadn't sacrificed more than they ever knew. It reminded me of the day I signed over the final check to help with their down payment. David didn't say thank you. He just asked when the funds would clear. And years before that, when he called crying about student loans, and I quietly emptied my savings so he wouldn't feel ashamed. I paid for everything. But they still made me feel like I owed them more. And then there was the wedding. David had asked me to help pay for the flowers, the food, even Lily's dress. I did it. Willingly. I wanted to help. But on the wedding day, I wasn't seated at the family table. I was placed near the back. No speech. No recognition. I sat there, smiling, while something in me quietly wilted. I didn't respond to David's message. I didn't have to. They didn't ask me what had changed. They only noticed that something had. 2 days later, they sent a card. One of those store-bought ones with gold foil and a generic message. Thinking of you during the season. No signature. I added it to the folder. Maria came by again that afternoon. She brought a small poinsettia and a warm scarf. We drank tea by the fire. She asked how I was holding up. Peaceful, I said. Strange, but peaceful. She nodded. That's what peace feels like at first. Strange. Because you're not used to it. We talked about nothing important. And yet, it felt more real than any holiday gathering I had attended in years. I didn't need a dozen people pretending. I needed one person who saw me. The following week, I got a call from the bank. There had been a failed login attempt on one of the old accounts David used to manage. I had already changed all the passwords, removed his access. But they still tried. That night, I checked my security camera footage. I had installed one near the front door last summer, quietly. It showed David standing there around midnight the night before Christmas Eve, looking at his phone, pacing. He never knocked. Just stood, then left. I downloaded the video. Added it to the folder. This wasn't about paranoia. This was about patterns. They weren't done trying to get in. Even if I had locked the door, they still rattled the handle. I slept with my phone off. 2 days into the new year, I got a voicemail from Lily. I know things have been weird, but I just want to say I never meant to make you feel bad. We were only trying to help. I know it came out wrong. We should talk. Help. Help never looks like control. Help doesn't feel like being watched. Help isn't locking up someone's medication or forging their name on legal papers. It reminded me of something my own mother used to say when I was small, whenever I cried or asked too many questions. Stop making a fuss. You're too sensitive. I had grown up learning to silence myself to keep others comfortable. I added that voicemail to the folder too. Maria returned with the final signed documents. The lawyer had processed everything. My will was updated. The house, my savings, everything, all of it now directed exactly where I wanted it to go. David and Lily weren't in it anymore. The only name left was Maria's, with a note asking her to donate the house, eventually, to a local charity for elder women in need. I made myself a new key and locked up the file box. It was done. That evening, the snow stopped. The air felt different. Lighter. I sat at the window with a new cup of tea. No one watched me drink it. No one commented on my habits. No one asked if it was decaf, if it was safe, if it was what I should be having at my age. It was just tea. And it was mine. I breathed deeply. And for the first time in a long while, I realized something. They didn't see me. But that didn't mean I wasn't here. They didn't value me. But that didn't mean I had no worth. And just because they wanted me quiet didn't mean I had to be. I chose silence. Not as surrender, but as power. And from that silence, I began to rebuild. On my terms. In my name. With my own 2 hands. Not to be noticed, but to be free. The silence didn't last. It broke 3 days after New Year's, with the shrill chime of my landline ringing just past 7 in the morning. I didn't answer. Not because I was asleep, but because I had already learned that not every ringing phone deserves an ear. A few minutes later, it rang again. Then my cell. Then the landline once more. I let them all ring. By 8, the text messages had started. David, we're coming by this afternoon. We need to talk. Lily, I hope you'll be civil. This has gone too far. Civil, that word settled in my chest like a stone. For years, I had been the definition of civil. I swallowed my discomfort, smiled through slights, and said thank you when I was being used. And now, silence was too much for them to handle. Now they demanded civility from me. They wanted me back in the box they had built. Quiet. Grateful. Willing. I made tea. I added honey this time. Slowly. Deliberately. I didn't prepare the guest room. I didn't make a cake. I didn't unlock the door. They knocked that afternoon. David's voice was low, practiced, Mom. We just want to talk. Lily chimed in. You've scared everyone. We thought you were sick. We were worried. You're not acting like yourself. I didn't respond. They knocked again. Then again. The tone turned sharp. David's voice raised. This is childish. You're being stubborn for no reason. We've done everything for you. Lily's voice was colder. You're making a scene. You're embarrassing yourself. Then a loud slam on the door. I flinched, but I didn't move. When no answer came, they left. I watched them go from the upstairs window. That night, I got the email. Subject line, urgent, family concern. We feel like you're isolating yourself. This isn't healthy. You need support. If you keep cutting people off, there will be consequences. Consequences. As if I were a child refusing to clean my room. As if my silence was a tantrum, not a boundary. I printed it out. I added it to the folder. The next day, they sent someone else. Lily's mother. Judith. She rang the bell twice and then started tapping on the window pane. I opened the curtain just enough to see her eyes scanning the room. She leaned in and called through the glass, Evelyn, be reasonable. This is your family. Family. The same woman who stood in my kitchen and told me I should consider downsizing. The same one who smiled too wide when Lily took over my spice rack, saying, you won't need all these anymore. I stepped away from the curtain and waited. She knocked one last time, then walked off muttering, ungrateful old woman. That afternoon, David left a voicemail. His voice wasn't calm anymore. It was tense, angry. If you're doing this because of Lily, you should just say so. She's been trying her best. We both have. We've supported you for years, and this is how you repay us? Are you trying to punish us? Because it's working. Supported me. I almost laughed. Supported me? I paid their mortgage the first year when David lost his job. I cooked every Thanksgiving meal for a decade. I babysat their daughter for free, 3 days a week, so Lily could finish her degree. I drove to their house with soup when Lily had the flu and cleaned their bathroom while she slept. But to them, my value had an expiration date. When I stopped saying yes, I became a problem. I added the voicemail to the folder. Maria stopped by that evening. She didn't knock. She knew better. She texted first, I brought that soup you like. I'll leave it at the door unless you feel like company. I opened the door. She didn't ask questions. Just sat beside me as I ate quietly. And when I was done, she handed me an envelope. Inside were 3 letters. All handwritten. One from a woman I had once mentored at the church pantry. One from the neighbor boy I used to help with homework after school. And this one surprised me, from the mail carrier, Mrs. Dorsey. Each note said the same thing in different words. Thank you for seeing me. You mattered. You helped me when no one else did. Tears came quickly, and I didn't try to stop them. Not for grief, but for the quiet recognition. The next morning, I got a new message. This one from Lily's email. I spoke with a lawyer. If we can't resolve this soon, there may need to be a legal intervention. We're willing to avoid that if you meet with us. We don't want to go down that road. Threats now. Wrapped in concern. Legal intervention. I forwarded it to my lawyer. No explanation. Just subject line, FYI. I made a second folder labeled interference. By the end of the week, they had posted on social media. A long, vague message about watching a loved one change and doing everything you can to support someone who's pushing you away. Dozens of likes. A few sympathetic comments. People speculating about elder decline. About how hard it must be. How brave they were for enduring it. Then came Lily's comment under the post. She won't even open the door for her own son. It's heartbreaking. That comment got the most likes. It stung more than I expected. I read it once, then closed the screen. I didn't defend myself. I didn't write a counterpost. I made stew. I listened to a radio show. I repotted a plant that had outgrown its ceramic bowl. When something no longer fits where it's been placed, it doesn't need to stay. Even roots know that. 2 days later, the police came. A wellness check. Polite but firm. We got a report from your family. They were concerned about your well-being. Just want to make sure everything's all right, ma'am. I offered them tea. Showed them the pantry. My clean house. My winter coat on the hook. They apologized. Said I seemed perfectly fine. And I was. As they left, one of them glanced back. You have people who care. That's worth something. I didn't reply. Because caring isn't the same as controlling. And concern isn't the same as love. I added the visit to the folder. The next letter came by mail. Not email. Not a knock. It was from David. 8 pages. Handwritten. He started by blaming Lily. Then circled back to blaming me. You used to be so strong. So helpful. I don't know who you are now. It feels like you're punishing us. You're trying to erase us. You're going to die alone and bitter if you keep this up. Erase them. No. I wasn't erasing them. I was removing their grip. I was cleaning up my life. I folded the letter. I didn't cry. Instead, I walked to the fireplace, lit a match, and watched it burn. I didn't add that one to the folder. Some things don't deserve to be kept. But the most unexpected thing happened a week later. A small card arrived. Hand-delivered. No return address. Just a single sentence inside. Thank you for finally teaching me what strength really looks like. No name. No signature. Just that. And still, through it all, I never raised my voice. Never defended. Never pleaded. I stayed quiet. Because silence, this time, wasn't surrender. It was dignity. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. Not even their love. Because if love means control, then it isn't love at all. And for the first time in my life, I had finally chosen myself. And I would not go back. It didn't come all at once. There wasn't some grand apology, no dramatic knock at the door, no sudden realization on their part. It came slowly, through silence, through absence, through their growing desperation. I had expected more resistance, honestly. I thought they would keep pushing. But what they did instead was shift strategies. They began trying to look like victims. Lily posted a long caption under a filtered photo of her and David at the beach. Something about how family doesn't always show up the way you expect, but we love them anyway. I saw comments from her friends. One said, "You're doing your best, sweetie." Another, "Some people just can't be helped." Every word felt like a bruise. I hadn't said a word to the public. I hadn't written one post. And yet, somehow, I had become the villain in their story. The cold, distant mother. The stubborn old woman. Even David's sister, whom I hadn't spoken to in 5 years, sent me a text. "I don't know what's going on with you and David, but maybe it's time to be the bigger person." The bigger person. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time after reading that. The same table I used to clean for family dinners. The one where I patched David's jeans when he was 7. The one where I wrote out checks to cover bills they never thanked me for. And I thought about everything I had given. All the times I had stepped in when no one else did. All the times I said yes when I should have said no. To them, that history didn't matter. All that mattered now was that I had finally stopped. And that meant I was the problem. Still, I remained silent. Not because I didn't have words, but because I finally realized they didn't want to hear the truth. They only wanted to hear what would put them in the clear. A few days later, Maria stopped by again. She brought me a small orchid, pale pink and still blooming. We didn't talk much. But before she left, she turned to me and said, "You're not the only one who's ever been made to feel invisible. But you're one of the few who did something about it." Her words stayed with me. That night, I sat down with the folder one more time. I went through every note, every printed email, every screen-captured post. And I started a letter. Not to them, but to the woman I used to be. I told her I was proud of her. I told her I was sorry she had to wait so long to stand up. I told her she didn't fail. She simply learned too late that love, when twisted, can look a lot like duty, and duty, when abused, becomes a prison. Then I folded the letter and tucked it inside the folder. I sealed it shut and put it in the back of the closet. I was done collecting their cruelty. I didn't need to be reminded anymore. The next week, they tried once more. A package appeared on my doorstep. Inside was a photo album I hadn't seen in years. Old family pictures, pages I'd filled with such care. On top of the album was a note in Lily's handwriting. "You built this family. We don't want to lose you." I stared at it for a long time. And for a moment, just a moment, I considered calling. But then I flipped through the album and saw the photo from David's wedding, where I sat at the end of the row, almost cropped out of the frame. The picture where Lily's mother stood in the center, hands clasped with the bride and groom. The caption read, "The family that raised us." Not a word about me. I closed the book. The next morning, I rewrote my will again. Just to make sure. Everything's still as I intended. No loopholes. No questions. I left the album in a donation bin the following Sunday. I didn't keep the note. Later that week, a message came through my front gate's speaker system. I had almost forgotten there was one installed. I had barely used it. "Mom, please. I know you think we were using you, but we were trying to help. If you'd just listen." He paused. "We miss you." It was quiet for a while after that. Then the speaker clicked off. I didn't cry. I didn't even get up. I stayed seated in the sunroom, watching the light stretch across the floor. I thought about what it meant to be missed. Was it really me they missed? Or what I gave? What I tolerated? Did they miss the woman who always bent over backwards? Or did they miss having someone to bend? That night, I made dinner just for me. Not a big meal. Just something I liked: creamy soup, crusty bread, a soft piece of chocolate I'd kept tucked away. I ate it while watching a nature program and felt okay. Not joyous. Not triumphant. But still. Whole. The next few weeks passed without noise. I spent my mornings walking the neighborhood. Sometimes, Mrs. Dorsey would wave from her route. Sometimes Maria would leave flowers at the gate. No big gestures. Just quiet reminders that life existed outside that one family tree. I started painting again. Nothing special. Just color on canvas. But it felt good. Like claiming a part of myself I hadn't touched in years. And then came the letter. Handwritten. Careful cursive. No return address. It was from a woman named Carol. "Someone I didn't know," she wrote. "I heard what happened through someone who knows your family. I just wanted to say thank you for reminding me it's okay to walk away when kindness is no longer returned. You've given more than enough. Don't let them convince you otherwise." There was no ask. No offer. Just understanding. I folded the letter and placed it on the mantel. I didn't need a spotlight. Just truth. That night, I lit a candle. Not for anyone. Just because. I sat in my chair, wrapped in the same shawl I used to wear when hosting family holidays. It smelled faintly of cinnamon and old perfume. It smelled like me. I thought of every moment I had stayed quiet when I should have spoken. I thought of every time I had been pushed aside, reduced, thanked with silence. And I made a quiet promise. I would never explain myself again to those who twisted my love. And if they ever asked why I disappeared, the answer would be simple. Because I finally understood what love isn't. I turned off the lights. The house was quiet. But I wasn't lonely. I was free. If you've ever felt like you don't belong, you're not alone. And no matter what they say, you don't have to keep proving your worth to people who only love you when you serve them. Love doesn't need to be earned. And dignity doesn't need permission. You're allowed to walk away. I did. And I don't regret it.